Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening with us. We know that life is crazy and days are long, and so even more so, thank you for giving up part of your evening to spend with us. My name is Holly Wingard, and I'm with the Early Childhood Investment Corporation, and I will be facilitating this town hall tonight. And I'm joined by my colleagues and co-hosts, Denise Smith from Hope Starts Here, and Alexa Kramer from the Grand Rapids Chamber, who will be supporting our conversation. So as co-hosts, it is our primary role to make sure that you are connected and have the opportunity tonight to share your voice. So we are going to mostly be posing questions and getting your voice heard. So we are just showing our cameras right now so that you know who we are. And but because we have so many people on, we are going to pick way, but wanted to just say hello first. So you kind of had a face with the voices that you're hearing. So we're going to turn those off to keep our internet connection stable. Okay. So tonight we are really looking forward to connecting you as child care providers and early educators with policymakers and decision makers so that the voices of the early childhood field is heard in this really important time. Before I get started, I just want to do a couple of housekeeping things to support you in participating virtually. I know so many of us spend a lot of time participating virtually in things, but we will do a combination of things tonight. Everyone is on mute because we are expecting several hundred participants so that we can keep background noise down. We just ask that unless you are talking, that we keep you muted. And we will be doing quite a few polls tonight. So those will come up and you can just click on them and be able to share your opinions that way. And then we'll be posing a number of questions where we ask that you just type the answers in the question box, which is in your right navigation bar. So all you need to do is click on where it says questions and start typing in. There are going to be a lot of things that we're going to be weeding through to listen and make sure that we're hearing all of your voices. And so thank you for sharing all of your opinions and thoughts and ideas with us in advance. So just quickly wanted to share with you the intent of this evening, out of our time together. Our outcomes that we're hoping to achieve tonight are that we can really get a better idea and hear firsthand from those of you who provide childcare and are owners of businesses that are childcare businesses, to understand, what you are facing right now, and to provide some context and gather some feedback about the Child Care Grant Relief Program. And then finally, really talk about what might be most helpful if we are fortunate and more funding comes available in the future. So listening tonight, we have several guests that I just want to really thank for spending time, and they're committed to working hard to make sure that all of you are listened to and that we do the best job possible to make sure that childcare is a accessible and wonderful thing for families. I know that we're having a really hard time in a lot of different facets, and so much gratitude goes out to Michelle Richard, the Deputy to the Senior Advisor of the Governor's Office for Michigan Prosperity, Lisa Brewer-Walraven, who's the Director of the Child Development and Care Office at the Office of Great Start, and Erica Bigelow, the Child Care Licensing Area Manager at the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. And to the state legislators who are also coming, thank you so much for your participation and for listening. So tonight, in the format that we're having, because we have so many people on here, these decision makers will mostly be listening, and they're here to listen to you, to your concerns and your ideas. And again, thank you so much to them for being here. So let's get started with a quick poll, because we would like to know who is with us today or tonight. So I'm going to initiate a poll real quick, asking you, what is your role? Are you a center-based provider, home-based provider, legislator, or an advocate, community organizer, or a parent? And if we haven't hit an area that describes you, please feel free to put it in the question box, because we'll want to know who else is joining us. Great, numbers are clicking fast here. This is very exciting. We have a lot of childcare providers on here, which is wonderful. That is our aim. Okay, I'm going to close it in a couple seconds. And we'll share the results with you. So we have 47% are center-based providers and 42% are home-based, including licensed exempt providers. And about 8% are advocates or community organizers. And we have some parents too, 2% are parents. Thank you, wonderful, that's great. And I'm gonna ask you one more question as well as we get going. What is the status of your child care program currently? So wanting to know, is your program open and are you caring for kids and you're full? Are you open but enrollment's low? Are you currently not open, or did you have to close? Okay, getting close here. Obviously, this is just for providers to be answering. Give it a couple more seconds. Okay. And looks like 68% of you, so the majority, your program is open, but enrollment is currently low. 26% are full, and about 5% said that you're not currently open. Okay, thank you so much. So the first question that we would like to pose to you and ask that you put in the question box the answers to is, just share with us overall, what are the biggest barriers that you're facing right now? And while we're doing that, I am actually going to allow a couple of people, I've got some hand raises up here and some people who would like to speak and answer this question or share some of their challenges and barriers. So I am going to call on Andrea Secris. I'm going to unmute you and see if we can hear you. Is it Andrea or Andrea?
It's Andrea Secris.
Hi, thank you. What would you like to share with us?
So I would say that the biggest barriers we're facing, and this is true not just during this very trying time, but in general, is just sustainability. So staying open, keeping our doors open, that's what's critical right now. And I think some of those barriers outside of the pandemic and those issues at hand and our low enrollment, which you can see 68% of people are facing, is some of the administrative barriers that we face. So when there is funding available, when there are resources available for providers, sometimes there's a lot of hoops to jump through. So sometimes the barrier is between us and the funding, us and the help that's at hand. So eliminating some of those barriers as far as the time that it takes to request funds, the time that it takes to process things administratively on our end, on the back end when we're receiving those dollars and the reporting out, and then trusting providers to identify their own legitimate needs and then apply those funds to the needs at hand. And most often that's operational support. The other piece is right now we're in a space where we're doing some administrative functions, and it's a bit of a burden to provide direct support to families, which I absolutely agree is significant and critical and great for those families. We should certainly be doing that. But taking the burden off the providers and funding those families directly, as opposed to creating extra work for providers who are working with less time, less resources, and fewer staff members. And then recognizing that the sustainability issue isn't new. This is something that's been ongoing and something that will be ongoing. In whatever we learn from our providers tonight and whatever we learn during the pandemic is something that we need to learn and apply moving forward.
Great, thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you.
I'm also going to unmute Lakita Thompson. Lakita, did you? Oops. So Lakita, you're muted yourself. Can you unmute yourself? All right, looks like we're not able to get her quite yet. So we will come back to you. We'll figure that out and come back to you. We're getting a lot of responses in, and thank you. We are going to be collecting all of this we have about 250 people on here, so lots of important things to scroll through. Not having coverage of being exposed to COVID-19. If you close, you have to, for 14 days, you'd have to close for good. Inconsistent income, limited hours, no funding for additional cleaning that's needed, and not being able to sustain due to low numbers, maintaining quality staff who want to continue to be working, parents feeling unsafe, finding staff, enrollment being low. Lots of issues that are being faced right now. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to keep moving, and I'm going to allow my colleague Denise to talk.
Thank you, Holly. In the early stages of COVID impact on Michigan, the state of Michigan released 5 rounds of overlapping grant opportunities from April to now. These Child Care Relief Fund grants were as a result of a combination of federal CARES dollars and the state Child Care and Development Fund. They provided grants to child care programs to cover costs during the COVID-19 state of emergency with 2 goals: to help early childhood programs stay in business and to make child care more affordable for Michigan families. These grants are non-competitive and funds do not need to be repaid. Despite the best efforts and intentions of the Office of Great Start and the Governor's Office with bipartisan support to inform and reach these 2 goals, there have been challenges, some remaining confusion, and communities and segments of the early childhood population who have not felt or expressed the fullness of this relief. As Holly stated, with this town hall, we want to hear from you, and we're hoping to get underneath what occurred, is occurring, to be able to move forward better. So my first question for you this evening, did you apply? And we're going to launch a poll to get those answers.
Okay, lots of quick responses coming in. Looks like it's starting to slow down. We'll go ahead and close it in just a couple seconds here. All right. So wow, looks like 94% of our attendees did apply.
So given that most of you did apply, we want to ask a few follow-up questions to that. One being, if you did not apply for a grant relief program, why not? And if you could put those questions in the question box, or those answers, I'm sorry, in the question box. Are you seeing those come in, Holly?
Yeah. Too much red tape, probably not eligible, unsure how it would affect my taxes. Haven't applied for August, which I was open because I'm concerned about the parent credit process. Wish parents were being reimbursed directly and not through us. Some of them don't have the authority who are participating. Parent credit, heard that nonprofits were excluded, the taxable income issue. A lot of work to be responsible for. They were closed in July and August, too confused once requirements were changed. Apparently didn't apply because there was some miscommunication about the funding and trying to get that figured out. So lots of different exclusions and confusion or not applicable to them.
It sounds like a lot of that occurred when the two overlapping opportunities were presented, which we were hearing a lot of. And so that seems to be relevant to this group as well. Our next question. If you did apply for a grant, what was helpful? If you did apply, what was helpful? Again, if you could put those answers in the question box.
So heard ease of application, easy process, the webinar, and FAQs. Sigma auto pay. They're moving fast. It being non-competitive. Rounds 1, 2, and 3 were helpful. Simple grant for providers. Money to stay afloat, easy application. Funds to make up for lost income. Not the parents, the funds. Lots of easy application. Money security. Saw this several times. Round 1 through 3 were really helpful. And the lack of competition. Great. Thank you for all these comments. They're coming in nice and fast. We've got lots and lots of people writing here. Yeah, so it looks like someone's saying the blessings of the first, second, and third grants. Nice to be able to help. 1 through 3 help me stay afloat. Funds to pay myself and my staff when we first reopened, and enrollment was really low. Yeah, a lot of helping staff be paid. Yeah. Okay.
So we want to move on?
Yeah, I think we can go to the next question.
Okay.
Feel free to keep writing things in. Thank you.
No, yes, thank you. Know that all of your responses will be shared. And the final question for me is, if you applied for or received the grant, what was challenging or not helpful? What was challenging or not helpful?
This looks like changes, bookwork for the parent credit, the parent reimbursements, figuring out reimbursements, untimely payment, changes, rate reductions, some communications issues. Like lengthy waiting process. Tuition reimbursement wasn't really helpful keeping the center open. If the center closed, how does that help the parent have affordable childcare and having to reduce the rate? Providing parents credit was confusing, untimely, and time consuming. Challenging part was the parent credit and the time it took to receive the money. Extra paperwork for the parent credit and explaining to parents that they didn't ask for it, not being able to increase parent contract. Changes to the state pay portion now have to pay back. Every round after round 2 was confusing. Thank you for all the responses. I'm trying to keep up and reading about every 3rd or 4th one. Giving money back to parents who've been working full-time and getting paid. Now money giving back to them that could be used to keep doors open and pay staff and for cleaning supplies. The length of time that the grants were actually awarded. Other than that, I didn't find anything difficult with applying for the 1st through 3rd rounds. I'm apprehensive with August, as I was open but no cash parents. I do have state parents who normally would have copay, but their children did not attend the normal number of hours. All right. Why don't we also open it up for a couple of people to share with us verbally, if you'd like to comment on some of the topics about the grants, so we can hear your voices. I'm going to, let's see, I've got Johnny Bennett that I'm going to call on. I'm going to unmute you.
Yes, this is Johnny Bennett. How are you guys today?
Excellent. Thank you for being here.
I didn't wave my hand. That's weird. You should call on me.
Well, I
Anyway,
understood that you had things to say, so your name was provided as someone who wanted to speak tonight.
yes, I do. So, I understand you guys are going through this. It's like a survey of things that you're going through, but the providers in Michigan are faced with losing their businesses. Enrollments are low across the board from Wayne County all around. And I just feel like we want to know if you have money and if you're going to be giving us the money. You're asking us about a fund that was for us to apply for. We all applied. Majority of the people applied for it the first 2 months. It was really easy to get it, and then the stipulations changed. I mean, you had to be open. You have to help your parents. They're already getting subsidy. I mean, we're here to support them to keep their children and everything. We love the children, but if we do not get money for our businesses to sustain us, we will not be able to help these babies and these parents. We need to be sustained. We need help. A lot of us have opened and had to close back down. And it's just really sad right now. And I mean, we've taken this time to come on this call for support, and it's like we're being surveyed. We want to know if the governor is going to help. Do they have money to help us? The government has given the state of Michigan funds to support us. The providers, licensed providers of Michigan, centers, home-based, unlicensed, which are the home used to be relative aid providers, to support us. But instead, this money is going everywhere except for the licensed providers right now. And in the CARES Act, that ends September 30th, there was money to help sustain us, to provide money for PPP, for wages, for just the cost of living when it comes to running these business, health and safety for the babies. It's just a horrible time right now. Parents are afraid to put their children in childcare. Some aren't, some are. Some of them are able to work at home. Some of them are leaving their children with older siblings. So the industry is folding, and we're talking about surveys. This is serious.
Johnny, this is Denise. I just wanted to interject and perhaps provide a little bit more clarity. We are asking you these questions, but not to no avail. We are hoping that your input tonight will help shape decisions that, in fact, will be made even this week, which is why we have posed these specific questions to get to some of the way that the mechanisms were set up to administer the grants previously. And should more money become available, how might we do it differently? So that's why we're asking these questions to you.
Okay, because some of this, just like I think her name was Andrea, the first young lady that spoke earlier, the stipulations need to be lifted. It's too many. You know what I'm saying? It's too much. At first we had support, but now it's like we're just left hanging. But yet and still, we're considered essential workers, and then there's essential workers that need us. I feel we stand alone. As far as being essential, you know what I'm saying? It's mandatory that they have us. It's mandatory, and we're treated like it's not. We're treated like, well, I mean, like we don't need help. I speak with providers all the time, and the majority of them are in the same predicament. It was 26% of people that were full and sustaining. 26% of the providers on this call. That's it. Everybody else, some people have had 90, 100 kids, are down to like 11 and 12 and 13 children. Some people are open. Some people have opened and closed. It's horrible. So I don't know if you guys have fun. We were told that there was some funding coming available soon. And, maybe you can go back and tell the governor she needs to, lift some of those stipulations. We're licensed child care providers, the majority of us. And if we're not licensed, we still have applied to be taking care of children. And we've done everything possible that they've asked us to do, and, we need money and support. And from my understanding, is there any money for us? Is there anything for us? I mean, if this was before the coronavirus, we would have children, we would be billing for our children. Where did the money go? I mean, you know what I'm saying? And another issue a lot of the providers are having, they expected to be able to bill for school-age children, because a lot of those children, guess what? They're at home and they're schooling at home, but the parents have to work outside of the home. So a lot of the parents were expecting to bring those children to a licensed center or home-based childcare to care for their children. And the state of Michigan have stopped the funding for those children, for those parents to be able to receive subsidy for childcare. In the beginning of the summer, the governor, she raised the hours, 90 hours for the school-age children. Soon as September hit, bam, you can't even during school hours, you can't bill for having school-age children. Well, a lot of the parents and provider had made an agreement for the children to come with their smaller siblings or whatever the situation was. And those parents are left hanging, in addition to enrollment being low,
And
So yes, we want to know what you guys
yeah.
have for us. What do you have for the providers? We like to hear that. That's what I'm sure if more people can talk on this call, they will be asking, what do you have for us across the board? The state of Michigan, licensed providers and unlicensed. We want to know what you guys, well, not you per se, what are the fundings for us? I mean, what kind of changes we're going to make during this pandemic.
So I certainly am not going to venture to answer that question. And I don't know that, the colleagues who are on the line are capable of answering that tonight. What we want to do is hear everything that you've shared, because I have heard much of what you've shared and appreciate a lot of the challenges that are happening, not only for programs, but for families. I think that is a shared sentiment for everyone on this call, which is why we're here, honestly, to be able to take what is happening on the ground, to know that for ourselves, and to be able to translate that to the decision makers, so that hopefully what comes out of that is different. I want to touch on one last thing, and then I'm going to allow for Holly to transition us. With regards to return to school, there is the school funds that apply to K through 12 that would be overlapping what allowances that early childhood programs have always had during summer months and for wraparound. And so there is the crux of the matter that needs to be decided on by our legislators, how to manage things in COVID that are not occurring in a regular circumstance with children returning to school.
We are the parents and the families' support. That's what we do. We support the families and the children.
Absolutely.
That's our main job here. It's just not, but if we're not sustained, we can't support them. When you guys, when the government stopped the funding for these school-age children, most of these parents are going to lose their jobs that had school-age children in these facilities. From my understanding, one of the providers had a situation. She had an agreement with a parent to keep her school-age child. And when she had to break the bad news that subsidy will not be compensating for the child's hours, guess what? She just broke down and started crying. No-win situation. So, I mean, maybe maybe you need to unmute some more of us, not just me. Let other people speak too. I'm done.
Thank you, Johnny, for sharing your information. And, you know, I just want to reiterate what Denise was saying too. And we so appreciate your honesty and openness. These are really unprecedented times. And there are some things where we have some opportunities very quickly here this week. And the governor's office and legislators and people from the state departments are listening tonight and want to hear about this so that it can impact the decisions moving forward. So this is really, really important feedback. And so thank you so much. I think what we're going to do is transition then to Alexa. So let's talk about some good news, which is really something about what Johnny was talking about, because there are some possible future funding possibilities coming our way that we want to gather some feedback on too.
Yes, hello guys. Yeah, I think Johnny teed it up perfectly. So from where I sit, what's really great about working on childcare, I think especially right now, is even in the highly politicized environment that we are in, there is a ton of bipartisan support for childcare, for supporting our providers, for our kiddos, families, our communities overall. I think that, coupled with the fact that COVID-19 has only highlighted childcare providers and the businesses that they do run. And I think more and more people are becoming aware that childcare providers are businesses, and it is an incredibly hard business to run. And so how do we support them going forward? And so this portion is just trying to get looking at the future of what we can do to be supportive and how can we best utilize these funds if they do come from either federal or state, either the federal or state government. How can we best utilize them going forward? So I think we're going to start off with a poll. So we're asking with this poll, what are your current needs? So if there are additional funding available, what would your top 2 needs be? And so it says, please select all that apply: higher childcare subsidy reimbursement rates, health and safety materials, PPE, money to pay staff, funding to cover mortgage, rent, and utilities, or funding for facility improvement. So again, please select all that would apply.
Thank you all for participating. I'm seeing this light up. I have about half of you that have voted. Looks like people are working on this. I know this takes a little bit longer because there are several of them that you can choose from. And I'm sure many of you are selecting more than one, which is great and important. Okay, a couple more seconds and we'll close it and share the responses. Okay.
So it looks like money to pay staff, followed by funding to cover mortgage, rent, and utilities, and then higher childcare subsidy reimbursement rates. I know that is a big one as well. Funding for facility improvements, and PPE, in that order. So we'll go ahead and jump to an open-ended question. And so this is really, what should the state keep for future grant programs for childcare providers? So go ahead and fill in your answers in the chat function.
Okay, that's,
How are we doing with answers?
yeah, so I think there's one person who's asking what do we mean? So if we were to get more funding, if funding were to come from the federal level, what should be kept about what is being provided? And maybe some of it's what we're already had asked in the poll. So I'm saying non-competitiveness, easy application, and application process that's manageable, Sigma payments, provide funding, even low interest loans for businesses, operating expenses, licensing guidelines should come from legislature. It should be Lara's responsibility to enforce regulations, not create rules. I'd like funding made available to us to provide our staff with hazard pay to help sustain our business. Scrolling down here. Easier access for training. Keep Sigma. It should be similar to the first 3 rounds. Non-competitiveness, hazard pay would be great considering we have no coverage due to possible COVID exposure. Ability to cover our overhead costs. Have it be non-competitive. Funds be used as provider decides. Provide payments to the provider if we have a positive COVID test. Funds to raise wages to keep our employees. They're at risk. They're risking their health to work in childcare programs each day. More hazard pay, lots of hazard pay. Don't include the rating as part of the fund amount. Cleaning supplies, money to hire back staff. Frontline benefits being able to use to improve the facility. I'd like the grants to continue to help childcare businesses that doesn't involve reimbursing families. Yeah, ability to reimburse parents if we have to close due to COVID. Lots of comments coming in about the STAR rating. Don't use the STARS programs or certain amounts of years being licensed. I think that families, especially private pay, need a tuition break. Money to give raises so we can compete with the unemployment rates. It made more sense for them to stay home and collect unemployment, which is not good for the system. So kind of the converse opinion, we work hard for our STAR ratings, so they should be included in the grants. Clear rules that do not change month to month. So many of us were counting on the funding for June, July, and August. Every month the language changed, and even webinars ended up causing confusion. So lots of yes, no about the STAR ratings. There's a lot of comments about those. And then someone said people are struggling whether they are STAR rated or not. Why is this even a factor? Okay. Thank you for your comments on that.
And feel
Alexa,
free,
you're ready.
yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
feel free to go ahead and add if you didn't get a chance to yet, but we are going to jump to, I believe, our last poll. And this one is, the state may be able to temporarily change some subsidy rules because of COVID. What solutions should policymakers consider? And so please select all that apply. Billing for school-aged children during the school day, billing for absences monthly rate rather than a weekly, or an other. And I think that we're going to do the other and use the chat feature for other as well.
Okay. Filling in nice and quick. Thank you. Kind of slowing down now. I'm going to close it in a couple of seconds. Okay, let's.
So neck and neck, it looks like billing for school-aged children during the day and billing for absences, and then monthly rate rather than weekly, and then that other, again, using the chat feature too. So with that, I think that concludes my portion. I'm going to turn it back over to Holly.
Thank you so much. So we're going to provide the opportunity for a couple of more to share their voices. So I'm going to, because of course we do want to hear what you have to say. We are collecting everything that you are typing in, and it will be collected and shared. I'm just looking for, you see that we had Sonia Hickey who wanted to talk. I'm going to find her and unmute her. Sonia, you want to unmute yourself? Can you try one more time? Sonia, can you unmute yourself?
Me?
I can hear you.
Oh, good evening, everyone. So my biggest concern is actually the hourly pay that we receive from subsidy. I think that should definitely go to either a weekly or monthly pay, because some of those children are not coming to childcare at this moment, but they are still enrolled in our center. So we definitely need to be paid weekly or monthly and not hourly, because that makes us have inconsistent income coming in. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and I'm going to look also for Lori Fletcher, if you're on here. Bear with me for a second. There are a lot of you on here. So I'm going to unmute you, Lori. You'd like,
I am here, but I initially was going to reply to one of your other questions. So at this time, I don't have anything to add.
Did you want to talk about the other question, or you're good?
No, we've moved on from that. So we'll just or
okay.
Pick somebody else. Thank you, though.
All right, thank you. And what about Krista McDonald? Gonna unmute you.
Hi, this is Krista McDonald. So first, I just want to say thank you for doing this. To my knowledge, this outreach to the childcare community has not really ever happened before. And I also want to say that I think the responsiveness from the governor's office to really recognize that childcare is not just an education issue, but also we are the foundation that keeps the economy running. And just that recognition alone, I think, is elevating a lot of things that have gone silent for a very long time. So that is a really big positive from my perspective. I think that the sector in some is in trouble. The reality of many childcare providers were hanging on a razor's edge before all of this happened, and it had a lot to do with the policies of the child daycare subsidies in Michigan, really restrictive licensing requirements, things that make it very hard to stay financially afloat. So one of the things that I would say is, as you're making decisions, err on the side of trusting us that we know what to do with the funding and will apply it accordingly in order to keep our doors open. Put very few rules and administrative hurdles in front of us. If you want to help families with childcare expenses, which is incredibly important, give the money directly to families. It helps. We do not have the ability to continuously wade through the administrative burdens of trying to do that kind of relationship financially with our families. Give checks to families to help pay for childcare, and give childcare providers, give us dollars to keep our doors open. And then lastly, the last thing I would say is, remember this when we're on the other side, because the reason why so much attention has to be paid now is because our industry and sector is very, very weak in Michigan, and we need sustained public legislative attention to strengthening our sector and making sure that we stay viable and open. And that first and foremost means we have to worry about our workforce and figure out how to pay them more. That's all.
Thank you, Kristen. So I am seeing some hands raised still. So Christy Roberts, if you'd like to talk, I will unmute you.
Good evening.
Hi there.
Hi. I just, I want to say thank you. This is kind of emotional for me because I'm a child care provider. I own a center base, and I recently expanded last year. So I took on a lot of debt right before the COVID hit. So once it hit, I was an emotional mess trying to make sure that I could stay afloat and keep my business running after this mess. And the funds from the state of Michigan was highly helpful in my situation. So I can't thank them enough that they, provided me. I was getting, $8,000, a month, and it was just, it kept my doors open, or at least it kept my rent paid. I did reopen, and I'm at low counts now. And now that the funding is going to end, it's going to be a struggle because I don't have enough income to pay the bills that I've acquired and to be able to pay for the staff. But what I'd like to kind of touch base on, though, is in the past and even moving forward, I think the state of Michigan should really consider providers that provide care for low-income families. Yes, we want to help these families out as the state of Michigan does, and as we do by providing the care. But it takes a lot of time and effort for us to have to keep, the attendance records and then logging in and then waiting for our payments to come in. And, it's costly. I have to pay staff to do these items, or, every 2 weeks and get online and do this and do that. But these funds are coming in, but they're helping the families ultimately. They're really not helping the providers. So in other words, we're paying staff and we're doing all this, but where is the money for the providers? I strongly feel like if you are a provider that does provide low-income care and takes subsidized payments, then there should be an X amount of dollars every 2 weeks or every week that goes to the centers for doing this. It's an incentive for us to continue to help the low income, although of course we do it, out of the goodness of our heart, but it'd be nice to have that extra incentive to, be able to spend the time and energy of, billing the DHSS clients. So that's what I really feel like in moving forward, that would be awesome if they could say, hey, you get X amount of dollars just for being a provider that's doing this.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm going to call in a couple of other people. I see several hands raised, so let me just scrolling here. How about Dorothy Morris? I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me okay?
Hi, I can.
Thank you so much for having me. This is invaluable, being able to have all of us get together and letting many of us, have voices. I'm a small business owner, of course, as well. Some of my comments were back with the first lady as far as, I'm feeling that we're not always being communicated with as far as how the money is going to be coming. So in other words, we know we're getting grant funds, but then we don't know if there's going to be a change or what that change is going to hold until it's actually happening. And then you're waiting a long time. When it was just provider money, we waited 6 and 8 weeks for our money. And then when it was money that was given to the parents, then all of a sudden there was a turnaround in 2 weeks, and so I agree with what many have said as far as this all hit us hard. I'm sure I'm among many. I opened up my contracts. I let people do what they could. I worked with them. I'm still working with them. And so instead of people being able to give, notice or anything like they normally do, that's kind of a thing of the past right now. And so I was never told about the school age, funds. Probably 95% of the school age children that I am helping to virtually learn are all DHS paid children, almost every single one of them. And I to go and tell them, like some of these other ladies, that they've had to do, to tell them all of a sudden there's no funding. And I did end up finding it on a question and answer, but there was no, I don't know, it wasn't a really great the way that it was announced. So it was not something we realized and could have prepared for. And so those, I just can't imagine, I guess I'm in agreement with you in your brain. If the hours get, taken up to 90 like normal, then, payment gets made if the kids are in your care. And so for the hours to get increased to 90 and then not be told that that you can't bill for that, it's very confusing. And then when you're already on the brink of not being able to, whether it's pay your employees, keep up on the, the licensing guidelines for all the health and safety things. And so I think we're all in agreement and all working hard to try and maintain compliance and safety and the well-being for all of our families and really anybody's paths, that we're crossing. And so just, I have appreciated all the grant monies. I too feel like I'm not quite sure how it helped the center, giving, the 30% to the parents. I agree with they should have gotten a tax credit or something, and the centers just should have gotten, the money. So it's less, because it's already a lot going on with all the changes that keep coming, as the COVID changes. Does that make sense? Or is that?
Absolutely.
I don't want to be too long-winded, but hopefully you understand. But the biggest help really has been those non-competitive grants, because I don't have the money to do those you know, the hazard pay for my employees. And I got down as low as 8 children, and I kept half of my workforce. I got about 23 employees. I kept half of my workforce working with 8 children, you know, trying to do the best that I could for those. And those were 8 essential families that were out working, you know, and so that enabled me, with the support that we got from you guys, to be able to very creatively, you know, keep that happening. And our numbers obviously have not recovered like many others. And so day to day, you know, you go in and you go, okay, how am I going to battle COVID today? How am I going to make sure, you know, we don't have anybody positive today, you know, and manage, you know, and manage, you know, the business and the funds. And so I do want to thank you for listening. I do want to thank you for hearing my voice. And I hope with all my heart that you do come through and continue to help all our daycare centers here in Michigan. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing and for your insights and for all you're doing. Let's call in a couple more people. I see a few more hands here. Deborah Bryant, I'm going to unmute you. There you go.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Hi. Thank you so much for hearing me out, and I'll make it really quick. But I wanted to reiterate with the voice of Johnny. I didn't get her last name. Holly, I heard you, and I also agree. Dorothy, I'm praying for you. But my biggest concern was daycare providers who in the beginning were challenged with COVID, who may have been symptomatic or had the virus and didn't know it and was not being directed, and worked through it, as a lot of parent providers that I spoke with, and even and some of our parents who had the virus but wasn't being tested, but was still kind of carrying on their day, and we weren't getting hazard pay, and we were making really tough choices at that time. Poor communication through the state has been my biggest concern, because we were not getting the information when children were being cut off of DHS, or either they were reaching the school age level, or that the parents were being cut off, and we were already 3 weeks behind in payments for their billing process. Also doing the paperwork, the administrative part for not only the grants, but also for DHS, which 90% of our children are DHS billed. It's time consuming. The inconsistency in income when you're billing DHS has been a big problem. So we're feeling isolated. The communications that we normally get are by email, and then the webinars that we have, some of us do not have the luxury to get on, especially from 6 to 8, which has been a challenge, or even up in the daytime, the 2 to 3. So that communication part. So today I actually made a point to get on one of the webinars so that I could be a part of this, and I appreciate it. And then being an essential care worker during that time, just not hearing other people. It's the only people that we are actually hearing from is our parents, and even their communication had been limited because we had cut off our ties from them coming into the area where, you know, we were requiring them to come just to the door, because so many people were being exposed to COVID during the essential care hours. So with that DHS funding was beautiful from 1 to 3, but when it got past that time, it had become complicated. That was what I really wanted to share, but definitely the COVID and the isolation.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Appreciate your comments and for making the time to come. We know it's challenging, whether it's during the day or in the evening, and we appreciate you making the time in your busy life to spend doing this, and it's really important that we're hearing you. I'm going to let's see, how about Toya Taylor, if you'd like to talk. I'm gonna unmute.
Hi, this is Toya.
Hi, Toya.
Hi. So, without support, we won't remain open after the pandemic. So that's pretty much a major issue that we're all having. But I have an additional concern with the STARS. All child care programs are licensed by the state of Michigan, which indicates that we meet operational standards. But however, it feels like we're being monetarily punished because, with your STAR rating, your funds can decrease if you have program changes or, things of that nature. And we are graded, so to speak, or, by the PQA. They come in and they give us an assessment. And with the PQA, the educational component of staff weighs the heaviest. So if, you're unable to afford a college educated staff with a 1 or a 2 or even a 3 rating, but however, if you don't have a higher rating, you can't, you can't hire that educational staff. So that component weighs the highest. And so, a lot of us feel, or especially I feel, that our subsidy rate should not be tied to the STARS. I think that the STARS is a fabulous thing in order to raise quality. However, it should be something that people volunteer to do to get additional funding. We should all receive a viable wage. And once we receive that wage so that we can pay our operational costs, at that point, if you want to participate with the STARS and increase your quality, then you should get an additional bonus. When I looked at the calculations for a center license for 50 children, let's take this for instance, and let's just say hypothetically you have all toddlers, just so we can use one number because we know the numbers are all over the place. So you're licensed for 50 children, and if you have a 1-star as opposed to a 5-star, that 1-star center would receive a loss of income of $150,000 over that year span. That makes it very difficult for people to operate, within their budget and know what they're getting because they're dealing with the STARS. So in essence, I just believe that the STARS is something that should be in addition to receiving a viable rate for everyone. It should not be tied to your regular rate. So that's a big concern for me.
Thank you, Toya. I appreciate you bringing that up since we had so many comments about the STAR rating attachment to this. And so thank you for providing some context around your thoughts. Appreciate that.
Thank you for listening.
All right. I'm gonna just do a couple more. How about Summer Latow? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name.
No, that's okay. It's Summer Latow. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a few things. One, I have adapted. I have a family child care program, and so when all of this hit, I did close for a couple months and then reopened and have gone to running my program 100% outside, and feel like it's been really beneficial for me and the children in my care, and wish that we as a community, as an early childhood community, could really learn from each other and from this experience, that we could really be doing a lot more outside, which is going to lower our risk factors for us as providers and for our children. And that means that for family childcare, I'm not bringing parents into my home. I'm not, and because I work by myself, I don't have the option of having one provider meet families outside or anything like that. But because we are running outside, I don't have families in my home. My children can be inside, who are learning online right now. My husband works from home, is working from home currently. So they're all in the house. We're all outside, and that has been great. And we plan to stay outside as long as possible. So I would love to see information come out for providers about how to make this work, ways to make this work. I know there are lots of outdoor programs. I know other countries run programs outside year round and have lots of benefits to it. So if there's information that can come out for programs, I think that that would be great. The other thing is masks. Since the mask mandate came out, we've been working to wear masks. My kids wear a mask most of the day, and have been doing really well with it, the 2-year-olds and up. But my problem is getting masks. I've made a bunch, but with 2-year-olds, they get wet, they get dirty, they go to take a drink of water and they forget they're wearing a mask and they drink through their mask, so it has to be replaced. So, but acquiring masks are difficult. So I don't know if there are resources that could be made available to providers to get child-sized masks, because even just a child mask does not fit a small toddler face. So that is something that I'm in search of. The other thing is just to put a different spin, since we've brought up the star rating. On the flip side, do like the idea of the subsidy being tied to your star rating. When we came up with the star rating for Michigan, I think that it's a lot of work, and the work that goes into getting your star rating is beneficial because it makes you go through how your program is being run, how you are as a provider, your staff, if you have staff, and tying it to your subsidy. If you have a 1 rating, you haven't done a whole lot to get that, but you can have a 3 and never have a PQA. So, which is going to make a difference in your subsidy. But if you have a 5, that is a huge difference in your subsidy. But also, you don't have to have a bachelor's to have a 5 PQA. And we want to push our families, especially our families that maybe are at our children in our community who are at most need, to get a quality early childhood experience. So the best way for them to get that is to go to a facility that is the highest rated. And so I think if we keep our star rating tied to our subsidy, families are going to go there. They're going to get their childcare paid for generally 100%, I would think, or close. If their childcare is paid 100%, they're not going to have a copay. And so I do think that the star rating should be tied to the subsidy. And I think that it's okay for us to do those things, because it might be that a 5-star has more involved or more, I'm not sure, but I think that it's okay to tie the star rating to the subsidy and things like that. So thank you.
Thank you for your input, Summer. I appreciate it. And for those of you who are listening to other people's perspectives and thoughts, I think Summer brought up some needs. Really more information about outdoor programs and ideas about really transferring a lot of the time to being outside, which is safer, and about the need for accessing masks. And so if there are other things that is on your mind, please feel free to type those in the question box. I'm adding other things, resources that would be supportive of you right now. And Summer, appreciate your perspective on the star rating too. It's really helpful to hear. I'm sure everyone is interested in the different perspectives to think through the pros and cons of that issue. I'm gonna unmute a couple more, just 2 more people, and then we'll wrap up because I know everyone's been on for a while. I see Rachel Flanagan. Rachel, are you still there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Okay. So first of all, I want to say thank you for a lot of the things that have came up tonight, because I feel like it's just an echo of everything. But, you know, we have had to pivot so much over this time. You know, education pretty much shut down, and we didn't. We didn't stop. We just kept going, you know, and every day I'm talking to parents that are just distraught, and they don't know if they're doing the right thing by bringing their kids, and they're scared. And you know, we are too, but we have to be that comfort for them. And you know, our staff, it's just amazing how much they've just embraced all of this. You know, they're wearing masks. Oh my gosh, they are wearing masks all day long with kids. They're running and dancing and having fun with them, and they're still going. It's just amazing to me. So, but the funding piece, you know, we've had to pivot a ton, and the expenses have been through the roof. And then as the changes happened with all of the funding, it's just been really difficult to work through. And I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I just think that if there's going to be more funding, let us have the response to it, and let us be responsible for it, because we're going to do the right thing with it. You know, and I do agree with the star rating. The star rating is just so much work, and it's so expensive to keep up with. So I definitely think that it's okay to pivot or to keep that in place. I can't even remember why I raised my hand at this point, because so people have said so many great things. But really, honestly, it's just thank you for providing the funds. And I know personally, you know, the parents don't really care. I think this is what I got on to say. I made a big announcement, made it sound like we were just so kind by applying for this grant for them. And not one parent said thank you to me. And then the next month when I sent out statements, one of my moms said, "Oh, I didn't even realize I didn't pay last week." Like, not all of our families are in need. Like, I know there are many, many families in need right now, but most of our 2-income working families are not the ones in need. They're really not. But our staff who are making $10 and $12 an hour, they're the ones in need. And they're the ones putting themselves at risk every single day. We actually, just this week, had a COVID positive case for one of our teachers, and we had to shut down a classroom. And the range of emotions from the team that had to close down, but also the parents, like when I called them and told them, they're like, okay, we knew it was bound to happen. You know, I only had 2 families out of our 13 babies who were even upset. But our teachers are now scared.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Rachel.
Yeah.
Appreciate you keeping going, and I'm hoping that the health outcomes are positive, and more tests are negative, right, for you. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. We've only had one. We really do think it's probably isolated. Thank God.
Oh, good. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for calling on me.
Okay, let's hear from one more person if we could. How about Parveen Manga? I'm going to There you go.
I have a family home care. It's licensed, and I shut down in like March, and I'm still struggling to have my kids back. So I just have like 4 part-time. They come only twice a week, and I was wondering how the funds would go in future. And like in July and August grant, they didn't even pay the star rating. It's with everyone, of course. So I'm just trying to keep, my environment safe and healthy. I really don't, I mean, I am there to help all the time, but I am still struggling to get the kids back. So how does the grants help me for my future? I was just concerned. I mean, yeah, because we have rents to pay and all that stuff. I mean, I don't have staff. I just do all on my own. So I'm lucky that way. I don't have to pay wages. But like my income right now is 1/4 of what I was getting in my peak hours and peak days. So that's what my question was. How does that grant help such families and cares? Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sorry to hear that. We are working on, getting answers to all of these things, and just want to really thank all of you for your powerful stories. Just can't express how appreciative we all are that you are there and sticking with it and working hard for families and navigating this really challenging time. And want to assure all of you that all of your comments are going to be shared. We will be pulling every single comment out, and we have a recording of this, and we'll be sharing it with key decision makers and elected officials as important decisions are being made. And specifically, the Investment Corporation, Early Childhood Investment Corporation, will be sending you emails with summaries from not only what was captured tonight, but also news about budget decisions as they're announced and how your voice is making a difference. What has happened with what you have brought up, and we will start elevating, the questions and the requests that you have to figure out how we can be supportive of you. I'm going to share. Just thank you so much for putting all of your questions and comments. We will comb through those, but as other things come up, the state welcomes ongoing feedback, and the email address that we have here on the slide is the best way to send additional ideas directly to the state administrators and decision makers, so that as you're processing what you heard and maybe have those afterthoughts, or as things continue to start happening, please feel free to send those to this email address. I think my colleague Denise wanted to say a couple things as we're closing.
Thank you, Holly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to close and state on behalf of my co-host and the organizers that I want to express how deeply important this conversation has been for you to show up en masse and to share your lived experiences and perspectives with us. I want you to know that we appreciate all that you do for young children and families, and your voices really do matter. We hear you, and we will continue to advocate alongside you. Please stay well.
Thank you, Denise, and thank you, everyone. Please stay well, and we so appreciate your voice tonight. Good night.